Hi everyone, my name is Darshan Prasad and this is a presentation of my research project for the course Public Key Infrastructure and Managing E-Security. The topic of my research project is social engineering attacks. Social engineering attacks occur when a hacker attempts to manipulate a person or a group of people into disclosing sensitive information. Hackers will often pose as someone else in order to gain a victim's trust. Common examples of social engineering attacks include phishing, tailgating, and baiting, though there are many others as well. Social engineering remains a big threat to cybersecurity today. So why do hackers use social engineering as a method of attack? Well, for one, as systems have become more technically robust in the last few years, discovering software and hardware vulnerabilities can be a complex and time-consuming task. Social engineering attacks usually manipulate other humans to bypass many security layers and therefore provide more direct access to target information. These graphics from socialengineer.org show how much of a danger social engineering attacks can be. One statistic that really stands out in this slide is that 90% of all email is spam and viruses. And therefore, it's actually not as surprising to hear that 88% of all reported phishing can be accounted for through email links. The average victim of impersonation is 41.7 years old, and they lost $4,187 on average. 60% of US adults who send and receive text messages also received mobile spam. Let's do a quick overview of some of the most common types of social engineering attacks to see what this looks like in action. Pretexting is a type of social engineering in which the hacker obtains information about another individual who is known to the hacking victim. Using this information, the hacker attempts to pose as the known individual and gain the victim's trust. The hacker then develops an elaborate scenario in which the victim is compelled to provide sensitive information to this known contact. The hacker then steals the victim's information. Phishing is another type of attack that frequently occurs over email. In a phishing attack, a hacker poses as a legitimate organization, such as a financial institution. They then attempt to steal the victim's account credentials through some type of account request. Once the information is provided, the hacker hijacks the victim's account. In waterholing, the hacker uses a combination of a trusted website and vulnerabilities within the website in order to gain access to sensitive information. The hacker first sends an email or other message to the victim with a link to a trusted website. They request that the user enter some information in a given form on the website. In the meantime, the hacker has discovered vulnerabilities within that website and leverages those vulnerabilities to then steal the information provided by the user in the web form. Baiting relies on a victim's curiosity. It typically involves leaving an infected drive, such as a USB drive or external hard disk, near the victim. The infected drive will usually have some type of curiosity-piquing label. The hacker assumes that the victim will plug in the drive in order to see what is on it. Opening the drive, or any files on the drive, actually unleashes a virus on the user's computer, which steals data and subsequently sends the information back to the hacker. In a quid pro quo attack, the hacker poses as a technical support representative and simply calls random phone numbers until they reach someone who genuinely needs technical help. Once engaged with the victim, the hacker then tricks the victim into providing sensitive information while quote-unquote fixing the technical problem. For example, the hacker may say something like, "All I need is your credit card number, in order to reactivate your computer's software license. When tailgating, a hacker physically follows an authorized individual into an area of privileged access. The hacker may pretend to be another authorized individual. Once inside the privileged area, the hacker begins stealing sensitive information and other valuable assets. There are several prevention challenges with social engineering attacks. One is that these attacks cannot always be solved with technology. In the case of tailgating, for example, a hacker may swoop into the privileged area faster than the authorized individual is able to realize. This brings me to the next point regarding human behavior. The authorized individual may even willingly allow the hacker into the privileged area if they feel it is polite to hold the door open. Of course, the victim is unaware that the stranger is a hacker, but it can be difficult to phase out human behaviors that are cultural. There are many attack points available to hackers in the social engineering chain. Even if hackers are unable to obtain sensitive information via a phishing or baiting attempt, they can still pose as an authorized individual over the phone, pretending to be a technical support rep until they get the information that they need. It's hard to stop social engineering attacks because for hackers, there's a low cost to entry. They simply need to make a phone call or send a mass email in order to hone in on a potential target. If one attempt doesn't work, they can always try another in a very short amount of time. More and more services are becoming digital, which is leading to new attack points in cyberspace. Hackers are certainly taking note of this, and the number of social engineering attacks has significantly increased in the last 10 years. It's important that all organizations take note of this as well, and that they develop a security strategy for all of their digital services. Despite these challenges, there are strategies to combat social engineering attacks. Typically, these strategies fit into one of three categories: technology, education, and policy. Technology is improving phishing and scam message detection through artificial intelligence and machine learning. This effort is filtering out social engineering attacks before they reach the end user. Companies are also training their employees on the dangers of social engineering attacks and how to spot one in your email, other messages, or even around the building. Some companies are actually purposefully sending phishing or scamming attempts to their employees. Of course, these email messages are benign, but they want to see what their employee response is and then provide education for employees who may have believed that the email message was actually legitimate. Security organizations are also developing protocols, both virtual and physical, for guarding sensitive information. This may include more scrutinized forms of entry into privileged areas in order to prevent problems like tailgating. Many security organizations recommend regular system checks on security. This could mean stress testing a system with quote-unquote good or white hat hackers who may be able to find vulnerabilities in security policies before they are exploited. In a broad sense, PKI can be involved in the policies, technology, and education that propel new cybersecurity standards to help counterattack nefarious social engineering attempts. In more concrete terms, PKI can really assist with several issues. One is standardizing an organization's security policy based on its size and number of physical and virtual assets. Some of the standard may include how to guard digital assets physically and the types of routine security checks an organization should be running in order to keep its systems up to date. Another is making email a more secure mechanism for communication. In the early days of the internet, email was a free messaging service that allowed a small number of people to connect. Today, email addresses serve as identifiers for sensitive accounts, and inboxes house warehouses of highly sensitive data. It's no longer a simple messaging service and must be treated with a better identity verification and trust model. Fortunately, many of these concepts exist today in cybersecurity. They only need to be applied to make individual email accounts more secure. If all email users were signed and verified entities by certificate authorities using public keys, then email servers and systems could easily block messages that were not from signed sources. We'll go into more details on this in the next slide. Much of what entices hackers to hack data at rest today is the fact that the data remains unencrypted. If this data were encrypted, hacking the information would still be useless without the public and private key pairs. Technology for such robust encryption exists today, yet much of the data in critical systems remains unencrypted. Performance of reading encrypted data is one issue, but end-user access is another problem. All critical systems today do not have encrypted data at rest. If more data in breaches were encrypted, hackers may lose their motivation to steal data through social engineering attacks. Many social engineering attempts occur because a hacker poses as a financial institution or other legitimate business. Perhaps legitimate businesses can leverage a public key tied to all phone numbers within its corporate directory. If the phone call does not come from a legitimate business number with the correct public key, then the receiving phone device can simply alert the potential victim that the call is illegitimate. We'll also go into more details on this in the coming slides. Here is an outline to illustrate how email messaging can become more secure with some of the concepts that we've talked about in this course. In addition to client and server identity management, email can include an individual's identity management as well. Individuals using email may be requested to obtain a certification from a registration and certificate authority. Once this is complete, the individual inputs the valid certificate into the email clients that they use. The email client will only send messages if it has a valid certificate for an individual. Duplicate certificates are not allowed. Prior to sending the message, the email client may check the status of the certificate with the certificate authority. Email servers may do the same when pushing email messages down to the appropriate email clients. In this way, individuals who use email for social engineering attacks will need to provide a signed identity certificate in order to send their phishing or other attack attempts. Either the message is tagged with a certified identity, or the certificate is revoked when a message is discovered to be a phishing attempt. This may reduce the overall accessibility to email, but it may also make it more secure. Similarly, a legitimate business can obtain a public key certificate for contacting potential or existing customers. The business can obtain the certificate with a combination of its identity verification and all of the phone numbers that it currently owns. Typically, businesses are given a set of phone numbers under a given prefix. The business then supplies the certification as an additional piece of data when it contacts end users. End-user phone devices can contact the registration or certificate authority in order to determine whether the certificate is valid. If the certificate is not valid, or if there is no certificate supplied, the receiving device can alert the end user that the call may be a potential scam. This would be one way to apply PKI technology to one of the most common channels used for social engineering attacks. Here's a short list of my references. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. Your feedback and discussion is welcome and appreciated. I look forward to sharing my final paper with you all in the coming days. Thank you.